just to start diving in under conversations, maybe I can give a brief introduction of both of you, so we really dive in. Here on my right, I have Mikael Nordlander. He is the Director of Partnership at Vattenfall, a Swedish multinational power company and one of Europe's largest producers and retailers of electricity and heat. Before, he was the Director of Industry Decarbonization, an area and responsible of Hybrit, and other collaborations aimed to directly electrify the industry. And then also with us, Martin Pei, Senior Advisor at SSAB, a Nordic and US-based steel company with a focus on high-strength steels and related services that has developed a fossil-free steel. He's also the board chairman of Hybrit, and he was the executive president and CTO of SSAB. So welcome both, thank you. Okay, something I think will be very interesting to start this first panel is something that I was simply mentioning when I was introducing you. I was mentioning both of them work on Hybrit, but both of them come from different companies and different sectors. So I think this is something very interesting that we can start discussing. And maybe I will jump the question to Martin to understand, of course, first, what is Hybrit, a bit of the background, and what has been achieved so far in terms of goals and expectations, and what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. Yes, Hybrit is a joint collaboration between 3 Swedish companies. It stands for Hydrogen Breakthrough Iron-Making Technology. It was created immediately after the negotiation of the Paris Agreement. So 10 years ago, we were facing all the question, how can we decarbonize the steel industry? As you all know, steel is essential for our society. Look at this beautiful building. Everything we live today with producing food, drinking water, or the airports, highways, everything we depend on are built with steel. However, steel is today produced with a technology that emits a big amount of carbon dioxide. So globally, steel industry stands for around 7% of CO2 emissions. And in Sweden, we, SSAB, produce steel from iron ore using this blast furnace technology, and we emit 10% of Sweden's CO2 emission. So back in 2015, when the negotiation final stage of Paris Agreement, in Sweden there was a discussion, how do we decarbonize the Swedish industry, Swedish economy? And I met Mikael at that time, and we had a common understanding that if we do this jointly, we maybe can develop a technology that can solve the CO2 emission question of steel production by using new technology. And essentially, we decided to explore to use hydrogen instead of using coal that is today widely used to produce steel from iron ore. And hydrogen should be produced by water electrolysis using fossil-free electricity. And with that, we can produce steel from iron ore, make these high-quality steel products without essentially any CO2 emissions. So we decided to launch this initiative in 2015, and we invited, in addition to SSAB Vattenfall, also LKAB, the mining company. So we created a joint venture company, and then we started to invest in a very extensive development program. We have carried out a 6-year pilot research program, and that program has been accomplished. And we have, in this joint collaboration, shown that the technology using hydrogen to produce steel without carbon dioxide emissions actually works. And we started in our joint research program, develop a steel product that was launched on the market already in 2021. So since then, we have been delivering limited quantities of these products that are sitting in cars, in trucks, in machines, in wind towers today. Many of our customers try this material, and the technology is proven that works at this semi-industrial scale. So very good success in the development work, and now we are implementing this technology. So SSAB has started the investment program, and the first facility will be already decarbonized next year, end of 2026. And end of 2028, we are going to commission a very big investment. With these two investments, we will cut Sweden's CO2 emission by 10%. And we have another step is to decarbonize also our operations in Finland. Hopefully we will do that around 2030. So this is a great journey we have done. Very much thankful to this very fruitful collaboration.
Thank you. No, and it's true how amazing, no, when you work together, like great things have been accomplished, many milestones have been achieved. And something I recall when we were discussing this panel and you were mentioning, Mikael, is not just a breakthrough technology, it's transforming an entire value chain. That's why different players are together. So jumping to you, the next question will be then about these learnings. No, you were also since the inception in 2015 of Hybrit. So what have you learned along the way of transforming an entire value chain just beyond a breakthrough technology?
Well, how many hours do we have? I mean, we essentially, if you take one step back and think about what we have done, we have decoupled fossil fuels supply to a whole industrial branch. And what we are now doing instead is connecting this industry with a new type of energy supply. And I mean, simply you cannot do that as individual companies. You will have to cooperate. And I think you also can understand that by cooperating and having the full value chain perspective, it also makes you more powerful in a way that you can optimize this. I mean, we have had a chance working closely together with SSAB and LKAB to develop the technology in a way so it fits the power system as we see it will develop with more, for example, more weather-dependent power. And also how you transform the electricity to hydrogen, how you store hydrogen has been developed into this project as well. So the knowledge we have been able to bring from our different companies into this joint venture and the full value chain perspective, that has been the most important thing, I think, to be able to paint the whole picture. And it doesn't really stop with the steel. Along the way, it was also tagged along the customers. Mm-hmm. As Martin described, the volumes that have come out has already been applied. Yeah. So we really developed the full value chain into the customer applications. So we're not stopping by producing a material. We're really changing the business on the customer side.
Yeah, definitely. And what you were also mentioning before, like how you have already developed this successful pilot, a huge milestone, no? After almost 10 years of developing trees, a lot of trust, a lot of collaboration, no? A lot of willingness of sharing the same values and the same mission to be aligned on that. But I know many fail in reaching this pilot. This is a great success, but then it comes the next phase you were also briefly mentioning, and it's the scale-up, the industrialization, and then different challenges come to play, apart from much larger investments and so on, but very few succeed on that. So maybe, Martin, you can share with us, no? What do you believe that, considering the example of Hybrit, it elevates Hybrit beyond a promising pilot, and what gives you confidence, no, that it can be scaled and replicated?
Yeah, the technology scale up is of course important, that we need to work very carefully, and we are very good at engineering, so that technical aspects we feel rather confident we can handle. But the major challenge is really scale up of the commercial viability of such a product. And with that, I am very happy to see that on the way when we started to deliver these trials, small volumes, and then we got a lot of very positive feedback from our customers. because without a market demand for this decarbonized steel, big decisions for investment to change technology will not happen. And in our case, we have been able to really secure strong enough customer demand, and then now we move ahead with this big investment program. So policy framework is important. Certainty in policy regulations will be extremely important going forward to keep the momentum so we really can decarbonize the whole economy.
Yeah, definitely is important because when I was introducing, it's important this cross-collaboration between sectors, between different companies, but it goes much more beyond. It goes also to the customer side. They need to be aligned with you. They need to be willing to try this product, to embrace it. And then, of course, policymakers, they are aligned. So many different stakeholders come to play in this regard. And maybe this question is relevant for both of you. Like, you can bring different perspectives, definitely. And it's about understanding cross-collaboration. This cross-collaboration between industries, sectors, different stakeholders, but also how can you do it with increasing complexity in production processes and also with globalized supply chains?
I mean, given the complexity of a value chain, you simply need to cooperate because, I mean, we don't have time to rebuild the energy system and then start transforming the industry. This needs to happen in parallel, and it happens in parallel. So by building these value chains, you minimize the risk for all by cooperating. And I mean, Martin touched upon the demand. That's a really vital point because it also follows a logic. These materials, these industries, steel, for example, is not a, sorry, Martin, very expensive product. But if you initially face a slightly higher cost, you could perceive that as a problem. But the good thing of having the customers on board is that once you make this steel into a product, the extra cost on the product might not be that severe. I mean, if you add a couple of €100 in extra steel cost on a car, a couple of €100 on the price tag of the car doesn't kill the case. It could rather be a selling point. Because, I mean, in the end, if you pay a % extra for a product, eventually what we all will avoid is the externality effects of climate change, which is far outweighing the extra cost we need to transform. It's a lot cheaper to transform than to take the burden of climate change eventually.
Yes, touching upon this really is the collaboration that we need to have in the whole ecosystem, because this technology shift that we want to go away from using fossil energy in producing steel that is used to produce other products, this is a very huge undertaking. We have a lot of areas we need suppliers and partners to make their investments in order to enable our big plans and so on. So this is very, at the same time, exciting technology shift. I think we need to see also the opportunities that this brings to further develop our business, become long-term more sustainable.
Definitely, and I feel very much aligned because this is what we do in our organization. EIT Manufacturing is an innovation ecosystem, so we truly believe of different stakeholders working together to really push faster things forward. And in that regard, coming different players into play, it's also important the context you are at. No? So bringing now, we have been discussing a bit more on the ground examples like success stories, what things are doing right that are very inspiring. But let's zoom out and maybe let's talk more about the context on where you are developing it from an European perspective, but also from a macro perspective, from a macro one. And in that regard, I would like to ask, and again, I think maybe it's relevant for both of you, the question. Maybe we can start with Martin this time. Like, given this global context, how is important for Europe right now to be at the forefront of decarbonization?
It is important for Europe to continue the journey because we have been among the first runners to start really to do this development work, develop the technology Now we're ready to really go to full scale, decarbonize the whole economy. And this we are facing a lot of challenges at the moment, but we should not lose the sight, because getting independent from the fossil economy, that's in the long run the best scenario for Europe as a continent. So we need to be determined, overcome, say, short-term difficulties, continue to make the right investments, decarbonize our economy, and become more resilient in the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, from a European perspective, I would say it's close to existential. I mean, there is sort of a misconception, in my view, that Europe has a chance to be competitive based on fossil fuels, which is clearly not the case. I mean, China has the coal, the US has the gas. We import, and we base our business in the energy sector and eventually in the industry sector on imported energy. So, I mean, the switching to a green economy is basically our chance. So whether you talk about resilience, whether you talk about energy supply or competitiveness, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there are upsides to do these shifts anyway. So, I mean, in that case, it's really essential now that Europe stays on course, don't wobble on the goals, but keep on track. And I mean, from the industry side, what we can do is to prove that it's possible, that we can show that this is the best path to go. And in a way, we can reinforce each other between policymakers and the industry to keep on the path.
Exactly. It's an urgency of now. We don't need to think in the long, mid-term. It's an urgency that we need to implement right now. And in that regard, Europe, we can say, is very strong. And for example, the policies, the regulations, on AI, on data, on sustainability, the European Green Deal, now the recent Clean Industrial Deal. So in that regard, it's also important to discuss this context, and maybe I will jump to you, Mikael, because more on energy related, like what do you think will be the most critical enablers, but also maybe the bottlenecks in today's policy and regulations that are impact your ability to support this energy transition that you are trying to bring on Vattenfall?
Very recently, we did a survey in Sweden among major industry companies and asked them, what do you think are the hurdles? I think we asked some 15 companies or so. And on top of the list, now bear in mind that this is Swedish conditions, and Sweden is an odd corner of Europe where you have loads of cheap, clean electricity. So that was obviously not on top for the Swedish companies. But on top of the list was the consistency and the long-term belief in the climate goals in the EU. Second place came grid connections and infrastructure. And I think there you have two excellent examples of the role of what the governments can do. As I said, stick to the goals, but also, bet on infrastructure. We need to reinforce the infrastructure. It's good already. We have excellent knowledge about electricity infrastructure in Europe. So keep on developing that to facilitate both on the power production side and on the industry side. For you, if users and producers are better connected, everyone will benefit from that.
Yeah, definitely electrify the grid, and this is also related, talking about the context like we are doing right now, on the economical context that we are, and thinking that, taking that into account also, like I will understand maybe Martin, but please feel free to react, is what do you think will be the European economic incentives that are really supporting this decarbonization journey, and maybe if there are, where do they fall short? So in your case, how do you think will look like a truly supportive investment ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, Europe has been really leading the putting a cost on the emissions. That has been very important for us to come so far. The emission right trading system with the decided phasing out of free allocations, that will continue to push for this green energy and industrial transition. That is a very good starting point. I think in the long run, it's need to continue the journey, to be firm on the goals. but also create the possible conditions for companies to operate, increase the long-term competitiveness, because that is what we as a manufacturing company in Europe will live on in the long run. So create good infrastructures like grid connections, electricity generation, push down the cost for those key elements in the production. And with that, I think we will continue to be prospering and developing well as a continent. That's very important.
Yeah, even supporting the smaller players, no SMEs and so on, that maybe they struggle more to bring these emissions down. We have a little time left, but I think a nice way to close the panel is to bring a question for them to answer in 1 minute or less, considering the timing. And it will be decided on you if we end up in a positive note, maybe on, let's be aware note, on a negative one. And I would like to hear from both of you, how positive do you feel right now that we will reach these net zero goals?
From our perspective, SSAB, a steel company, we are already making the major investments, so we will reach our goals. In the Nordic countries, we will be decarbonized around 2030. Very strong commitment. This is among the most aggressive ones in our industry, and our customers will have an opportunity to utilize this and to build their value chain. So we are, as a company, very confident this will be done.
Thank you.
I mean, Martin and me come here from directly from Stockholm. We had a party yesterday night celebrating the final phase of the pilot project. So we actually come directly from finalizing the pilot phase. So it's hard not to be positive today. We've proven that it works. So technology is there. I think as Martin says, the investments are coming. It's easier in some parts in Europe than in others. I have full respect that there are challenges. I mean, we could do better on efficiency of permission processes, not less rigorous, but at least more precision in timing. We could do better in the infrastructure. We could do better in clarity on that we're keeping the course. But overall, I'm positive. We have so much good things. We have the knowledge. We have a huge internal market. We have still a political course that is stable. So yeah, I'm positive.
The willingness to do so. So I think that's a perfect way to finalize this first round of panels. So let's thank our panelists. Thank you very much for all your insights.